But it was, presented to me, and I thought about it. Well, first, I actually thought.
On screen, Little House on the Prairie felt calm, steady, and full of warmth. Melissa Sue Anderson brought a quiet strength to Mary Ingalls, while Michael Landon anchored the story as Charles. Everything looked natural, almost effortless. But behind the scenes, that balance wasn't always real. As filming went on, admiration slowly shifted into something more complicated. Tensions built quietly, and certain dynamics became harder to ignore. So what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? Stay with Prestige Buzz as we uncover the story behind it all. A show built on something real. Little House on the Prairie didn't just appear overnight. It was carefully built from the beloved books by Laura Ingalls Wilder, bringing the Ingalls family to life in Walnut Grove, Minnesota. At the center were Charles, Caroline, and their daughters, Mary, Laura, and Carrie, played by a cast that felt like a real family. Alongside Anderson and Landon were Karen Grassle, Melissa Gilbert, and the Greenbush twins. But behind that unity was a very different reality. The show's development started when producer Ed Friendly secured the rights and brought in Landon. Landon agreed to direct, but only if he could play Charles. That decision changed everything. Creative differences soon followed. Friendly wanted to stay true to the books, while Landon envisioned something more flexible. Eventually, Friendly stepped away, leaving Landon fully in control. The pilot aired in 1974, and the series quickly grew into a long-running success. But from the very beginning, it was clear this was Landon's show. Melissa Sue Anderson, growing up under pressure.
Mike Landon and Ed Friendly as well. And Ed Friendly wanted to stay true to the books, but that would have been impossible, as you could tell.
Before the Prairie, Melissa Sue Anderson was just a young girl from California. Acting came almost by accident, starting with commercials before moving into television roles. At just 11 years old, she landed the role of Mary Ingalls, a moment that would define her life. At first, Mary wasn't meant to be the central focus. But Anderson's performance changed that. Her quiet intensity gave the character depth, and soon the writers began giving her heavier storylines. But that came with a cost. Mary's journey became one of the most painful arcs in the series, losing her sight, facing tragedy after tragedy. While it showcased Anderson's talent, it also placed a heavy emotional burden on a young actress. Over time, the balance shifted. Instead of growth, her character often cycled through hardship or faded into the background. Anderson later admitted it became exhausting. Still, her performance didn't go unnoticed. In 1978, she earned an Emmy nomination, the only one among the main cast. But off-screen, things weren't as smooth.
And that was interesting, and it was fun because Al Trisconi.
A set that wasn't so warm. Despite its comforting tone, the set of Little House on the Prairie was demanding. Michael Landon ran it with strict discipline. Everyone, especially the younger actors, was expected to be professional, prepared, and focused at all times. There were no shortcuts. That structure kept the show running smoothly, but it also created pressure. Landon's control extended to nearly every part of production, and over time, it led to tension. Cast relationships didn't always mirror their on-screen closeness either. While Melissa Gilbert formed a strong bond with Allison Arngrim, her relationship with Anderson was distant. Gilbert later described Anderson as reserved and hard to connect with. Others noticed it too. Anderson kept to herself, which only deepened the sense of separation. Personal drama spills over. Things became even more complicated when Landon's personal life entered the spotlight. He began a relationship with Cindy Clarico, a stand-in on the show, while still married to his wife, Lynn. When news of the affair became public, it shook the cast. This wasn't just gossip, it affected people who knew his family personally. For many, it changed how they saw him. Melissa Gilbert, who had viewed Landon as a father figure, distanced herself. Others struggled to reconcile the man they worked with and the image he portrayed on screen. The atmosphere on set grew heavier. The quiet rift with Karen Grassle. Another major tension came from Landon's relationship with Karen Grassle. On screen, they played a strong, united couple. Off-screen, things were different. Grassle pushed for better pay, believing her role as Caroline was central to the show. Landon disagreed, reportedly downplaying her importance. The disagreement turned personal. Communication between them became limited, and her screen time began to shrink. Even after resolving the contract issue, the strain remained. Eventually, she left the show. Years later, though, something changed. Landon reached out to reconnect. They spoke, reflected, and found a sense of closure before his passing in 1991 from pancreatic cancer. Melissa Sue Anderson and Michael Landon. For Anderson, her relationship with Landon was never explosive, but it was complicated. There was respect. She recognized his talent and the immense responsibility he carried. But there was also distance. Landon wasn't easy to approach, and his demanding nature created an environment that could feel isolating, especially for someone already reserved. Over time, that tension built quietly. It wasn't about one moment. It was everything combined: the pressure, the expectations, and the emotional weight of the role she carried. When her contract ended after 7 seasons, she chose to leave. Not out of anger, but because she had reached her limit. Life after the Prairie. After stepping away, Anderson continued acting, taking on roles that contrasted sharply with Mary Ingalls. She appeared in films and TV shows, exploring different characters. But eventually, she stepped back from the spotlight, choosing to focus on her personal life. Years later, in her memoir, she reflected on her time on the show with honesty. There were good memories. And difficult ones. Her view of Landon became more balanced with time, acknowledging both his brilliance and his flaws. When he passed away in 1991, she attended his funeral, closing a chapter that had once been complicated. The end of Walnut Grove. Even the show's ending reflected its behind-the-scenes reality. In its final chapter, the town of Walnut Grove was destroyed, blown up by its own residents. It felt dramatic. Unexpected. But the real reason was simple: the set was dismantled to prevent reuse. In a way, it was symbolic. A peaceful world on the surface, with a much more complex story underneath. A legacy that still lives on. Despite everything, Little House on the Prairie remains one of television's most beloved shows. Its warmth, its stories, and its characters continue to resonate with audiences even today. But behind that comfort was a reality filled with pressure, tension, and human complexity. And maybe that's what makes it even more real. What do you think? Did the behind-the-scenes struggles change how you see the show? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Prestige Buzz, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss what's really happening behind the scenes.